So a real estate agent is a transaction service provider, right? And so when someone becomes a real estate investor, it's not the same mindset. And so especially if someone's about to make that jump, when you're a real estate investor, you now have a different mindset. It's like when you're a teenager and you're borrowing money from your parents to go to the movies, and then all of a sudden you're no longer, let's say you grow up and you're on your own apartment and then you want to go to the movies and it's your own money. It feels different, very different. Making the jump internationally has to be strategic for each individual. And so I highly encourage that if anybody's interested in making the jump internationally, that they involve their accountant, very much educate themselves about tax implications, making sure that you're not getting double taxed. There's all kinds of information about Canadians investing in the US and how to do that properly, because there is no tax credit when you're talking about companies. And you have to be really careful about doing that. You have to structure it properly, because if you don't, you're going to be paying the US taxes on the money that you make on those rentals. And you're also going to be paying the CRA as well. Like, you're going to pay both. But there are ways that you can structure it that you're not. You want to make sure that whoever is advising you has a real estate mindset. You know, if they're playing checkers and you're playing chess, very different.
Hey guys, welcome back to the VIG Academy podcast. I'm super excited to have you here as always. This is a place where we talk about mindset, marketing, and money. You know, sometimes you meet certain people and you wonder, how is it that they achieved so much in their life? And it's not that they just achieved couple of things in that one specific industry, or having, let's say, having that one profession for 30, 40, 50 years. It's when the person also jumps different industries and succeeds in pretty much each and every one of them. So I'd like to introduce you to Jennifer Salisbury, who is a former US Navy nuclear propulsion engineer. Her doctorate is in education because her passion is teaching. And through My Life as a Landlord, she has a personal mission to create communities by teaching about housing each day. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for today's conversations, honestly. Like we did have a conversation a couple of days ago. We just had a lengthy conversation. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's record this. Let's start recording and cover all of these amazing topics. So could you please share with the audience a little bit more about yourself, and how did you switch from being in the Navy, and why did you decide to go into the real estate?
Sure. So a little bit more about me. American born, but I married a Canadian, right? He grew up in British Columbia. So I know you're in Ottawa, and I'm actually sitting in Maui, Hawaii today. But we have rentals on both sides of the border. And so my podcast is all about rentals and housing. And really, we're looking at globally, not just in one location. But my time in the Navy, my sister and I both went to the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. And I learned very quickly I am uber organized, very analytical mindset, very orderly, and ended up really enjoying the aspects of engineering. And so went to nuclear power school and ran reactors on the Enterprise. And then I got out of the Navy. It was really difficult for me to see a future in the Navy. I just couldn't see it because I wanted to do other things. And as a military person, you have to do what you're told. And I wanted to do other things. So I got out and ended up meeting this Canuck who is not analytical, very vision-minded, and very much a lone wolf, whereas I had been trained as a team player. And so very much the yin to the yang. And he was all about creating wealth through real estate. And when I met him, I actually met him here on Maui, and he was working on building condos. And that was something that we finished together in 2023. So there was a lot of work that went into finishing that. But how did I make the jump? Not easily, but because I met a guy. That's the answer for it.
It's always the guy or the dollar, right? Wow. Well, that's an interesting story. And so you mentioned that you said earlier that you would look at it at the real estate side, right? You do have properties in Canada and US, but you also look at it internationally. So when you say internationally, what other countries are you referring to?
I am actually, truth be told, in 3 days, we're getting on a plane to go to Australia and New Zealand. And so we're about to travel. I will be recording my podcasts when we're down there. And I think there's a misnomer with folks in real estate that wherever their rentals are, whether it's their geographic location or not, whatever the housing tenancy rules are there, they think that's the rules everywhere. And that's not true. And they're very different depending on where you are in not just the states or the provinces or territories. It's true almost worldwide. And so while I'm in New Zealand, I'm actually doing a podcast recording with a gal who used to be from BC, which is interesting because we're going to compare Canada versus New Zealand tenancy laws. I can't wait for that. But there is a lot of different tenancy aspects going on in like the UK, London, England. Very different. But then you look at things like certain counties in the state of Maryland. You have to be licensed as a landlord there. Your rental has to be inspected. And then there's other places that have no real tenancy laws at all. And so the federal laws kick in, like Idaho, right? And so there's different areas where real estate investors think that the rules they're used to are the rules everywhere. And that's not true. And so internationally, I'm zooming out and doing more and saying, you know what? Everybody needs to change their perspective a bit, because what you think is going on in Calgary is not what's going on in Germany. And that's the reality, is that it's very different. Yeah.
Hmm. I never thought about it.
Hmm.
Because in our case, we do have a big. I would say we do work with quite a lot of real estate agents, and a lot of them they do start as an agent most of the times in order to become an investor. But then being an agent and being an investor, that's what I realized as well. Those are two different things, and they're kind of learning in the meantime. So for someone who is, let's say, a real estate agent wanted to become an investor or already investing in properties locally, uh, would you give them some kind of an advice that would make sense to invest internationally?
Oh,
Because a lot of people so when I talk to people about investments, most of them say, well, it's way better to invest locally, because you can go to the property, you can visit, you can see it. I mean, you can always, of course, travel to visit and see. And then, as you said, like earlier before we started recording, like you can hire a property management company that would do everything for you.
if people are saying as real estate agents, so a real estate agent is a transaction service provider, right? And so when someone becomes a real estate investor, it's not the same mindset. And so, especially if someone's about to make that jump, when you're a real estate investor, you now have a different mindset. It's like when you're a teenager and you're borrowing money from your parents to go to the movies, and then all of a sudden, you're no longer, let's say you grow up and you're on your own apartment, and then you want to go to the movies and it's your own money. It feels different, very different. And so this is the difference, that how I see it, between real estate agents and real estate investors. Making the jump internationally has to be strategic for each individual. And so I highly encourage that if anybody's interested in making the jump internationally, that they involve their accountant, very much educate themselves about tax implications, making sure that you're not getting double taxed. There's all kinds of information about Canadians investing in the US and how to do that properly, because there is no tax credit when you're talking about companies. And so this is something that we talk a lot about on my podcast, because I have a lot of Canadian listeners who either have or want to invest in the US. And you have to be really careful about doing that. You have to structure it properly, because if you don't, you're going to be paying the US taxes on the money that you make on those rentals. And you're also going to be paying the CRA as well. Like, you're going to pay both. But there are ways that you can structure it that you're not. And that's what my husband and I had done. But we'd done that not, it took a lot of time and effort and a lot of advisors. And we paid a lot of money to figure out what works for us. I encourage your listeners to do the same. Hmm.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. Like, I remember when I started working on it's a business visa. It's actually still in process. For to be able to work in the US, but I didn't necessarily want to get uh, I think it's a business visa, non-immigrant business visa, something like that. So that way you can live in the US, you can work there. And then when I was talking to the accountant, she was like, "Yeah, but you're going to be paying. You might you might need to pay double tax." I'm like, because based on everything that I read, I knew that Canada and US, they have a tax treaty where they look at where you're supposed to pay the most. That's the country where you're paying, kind of a thing, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, in case with taxes, I think it's a whole another world. And a lot of people they are moving to US because of that from Canada. That's what that's
It's interesting that you've really got to lean on your advisors when you do things like that. And that's the first thing we do is we always, anytime we're about to do something, we always look at it strategically. And then we always follow it through all the way to the end going, if we're going to develop, like we're developing a tiny home community north of Vancouver, we're doing that right now and going, okay, we're adding more, affordable housing in that local area. And it's like, okay, so let's fast forward 5, 10, 20 years. It's built out. And does that go in our trust? Does that, there's a bit of generational wealth legacy planning here. Or is the best thing that we sell it? If we sell it, then capital gains goes to the CRA and then capital gains also goes to the US. So it's like, and then we convert currency. So it's like, why would we ever sell anything in Canada for us? Right. So it just depends. Things change all the time, but this is where we lean on our advisors who know our particular situation. And that's exactly what everybody's got to do wherever they're located. And even province to province, you want to make sure that you're really educated on what's best. Hmm.
And in case with advisors, would it be tax advisors or financial planners or
All of the above. You can't get enough information from these experts, these projectors. Now, I will say for financial advisors, if the financial advisors are only wealth managers, like they're only playing stock markets and they're only doing mutual funds and things like that, tax-free savings accounts, you want to make sure that whoever is advising you has a real estate mindset. If they're playing checkers and you're playing chess, very different. That's another anomaly. If you've got a real estate agent that is transactional, they're playing checkers. But when you jump into a real estate investor, that's a big jump into playing chess, way more dynamic. And so you want to make sure who's ever advising you is playing the same game as you. I think that's fair.
yeah, no, it is 100%. Totally makes sense. You just mentioned the tiny houses. We were actually thinking about getting one of those
Mm-hmm.
with everything going on, and we looked at the numbers. If you buy a house these days, it doesn't make sense for you to buy a house. If you compare, let's say, buying a house or investing even into stocks, let's say S&P 500, it doesn't make sense to buy a house if you're not planning to live there for at least 10 years, based on the numbers, which was I was shocked. And in today's world, it's like sometimes you're thinking like, hey, you never know what's gonna happen tomorrow, kind of a thing. And Canadian winters are like just killer.
Well,
So you want to go somewhere where it's warm.
yeah. Well, tiny homes and affordable housing, we're always looking at how can we increase density in the same footprint. Now, that's not without its challenges. And so when you've got cities or regional districts or counties that are adding things like carriage houses or basement suites or building out the garages and things like that, that's fine. And it's taxing the infrastructure that's already there. But then Mike and I also look at the logistics of it going, where's everybody going to park? Right. So you go from one, call it a monster house, and then now it's got 5 units on it instead of just the one. everybody's got a car or two, even if you've got minimalist, just call it one. So now you go from one or two cars to 5 or 6 or 8 cars each house, if it's fully built out. Very interesting unintended consequence, maybe. Yeah. And I must tell you, we are huge CBC fans. We watch About This on CBC. Andrew Chang is a fave of mine, and he just does a very simple, whiteboard. Here's what's going on. And he does it very often, like weekly, actually, sometimes more than weekly. Right now, he's doing a lot on Trump, which is more than weekly. But he did a huge series about Toronto housing and different layouts, and so was with the housing build out. All these condos are coming on. They're ready for people to live in. They're worth so much money, but they can't. Market rent is not high enough to support the mortgage payments and the increased, insurance payments and the strata fees, and you know what I mean? Like all this stuff. It's this really interesting dichotomy. And so he does a huge thing on the missing middle. And there's a bunch of episodes, like 4 or 5 episodes that he's done at the very end of 2024 that were fantastic. So if anybody hasn't seen that, CBC, Andrew Chang, About This is what the show's called. And they're like shorts. They're little 10, 15-minute shorts that very simple. Yeah, we watch him a lot.
It's interesting that they said 10, 15 minutes short, because for people these days, short is like 30 to 60 seconds. People's attention span is
TikTok.
Yeah, people's attention span is less than goldfish. I think less than 7 seconds these days. It's like 3 seconds, not interesting. Next. But yeah. Like 10 the amount is.
Some of that.
No, it's good. I mean, it's like you can get enough value out of it. Like even in case with YouTube, for example, some of the best performing videos, they are about actually 10 to 15 minutes, because that's enough time for you to explain the main idea, maybe of the topic, but at the same time, it's not too much or too long. Like I've seen like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hour videos, and it's like, I don't know how many people are going to watch until the end.
Typically, if we're trying to mine something for content, because Mike and I have been real estate investors for so long, that most of the time our podcasts and our YouTube videos are on at least 1.5 play. Sometimes we go as high as 2. He even goes as high as 2.5. I don't know how he listens to it, but what we're doing is we're listening for the nuggets. And it's funny, if someone has a strong accent, like British accent or Australian accent, I can't listen that fast, because my brain just can't track. So it just depends on the accent. But when you know what you're listening for and you know the majority of the topics, you're listening for those little bit of nuggets going, that's an interesting term. Next time we do a letter of intent on a commercial property, I'm going to put that in there, right? That's, or here's a website, that's another thing, was we'll bookmark it and go back and look at it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of the podcasts and the content itself, do you use ChatGPT by any chance?
I don't.
No?
I should, but I don't. No.
It's training.
Do it all organically.
So if you want to, because that's what I like as well. Like, let's say there is an 1 hour video, like an interview, and I really want to watch it, but at the same time, it's like listening to it, you'd either need to literally sit down and listen, like take a pen and paper and take all the notes, or I don't know, open Notion or wherever you take your notes, and pretty much be an active listener. Or what you could also do is, when you're on YouTube, scroll all the way down, click on show transcript, you copy the whole transcript, you go into ChatGPT and you say, please give me the summary of this interview, give me the main talking points, give me all the golden nuggets, like everything. It literally gives you everything in less than 30 seconds. So 30 seconds to a minute, and then you take all of that. So that's the way I study these days. I learn things. I take all of that. I have in my Notion. So I have books that I read. So I have the main book, and then right under the book section, I have different books under that, right? And then under each and every book, I would basically do, because you also want to make sure that you implement it. So I read the implementation part, and I do exactly the same thing with YouTube. So I have either the videos based on the topics, and I break them down the same way. So every single time, whenever I need to either reread or like I want to go through the notes type of thing, I just go through my Notion notes and yeah.
Remind myself it's a grand idea. Oh, love it. Yes. My husband is huge into AI. He is into AI, and he will ask AI rambling sentences of questions, and like who are the top 10 real estate brokers in this area, and what's their phone number, and just I mean, he just will go on, and then all of a sudden just it'll all come up, and I go, wow, and then he'll just follow it out. So I am behind the times on AI. I know we're going to talk more about digitizing stuff and getting more about AI. But how to actually make that leap from pen to paper to AI? It's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for other people.
Honestly, even in my case, so I have my notebook here.
Yeah. See, I got mine too.
And I have my diary. So I do both. I do the digital version, but I also like to write it myself, because sometimes it's like, yeah, like you could type it in, but it's not the same thing. Like even in case with all the books, I do have them in the physical version, but also on the Kindle, or there's another app. So it's really a mix.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm going to try that. That's going to be good.
Yeah. So let me know how that works.
Yeah. No, I will. I think.
Yeah. I'm sure your husband will like it too.
Yeah, no, he will. As soon as I show him little tricks, and that's the biggest thing is what's the hack? That's his whole thing. He's like, we can do it better, faster, smarter, or somebody can teach us how to do it. What's the hack?
Huh?
He's all about the hacks.
That's the world we live in these days, honestly. Give me all the hacks. Thus, speaking of the hacks, what's the hack to, let's say if somebody wants to become a real estate investor,
Mhm.
where should they start?
Well, go to your podcast. Go to my podcast.
I just listen.
They need to start with education for themselves, but don't get stuck there. They've got to educate and then act. And acting can even be, you can educate yourself to death. Like you can go to conferences and you can buy student programs and you can do it. But at some point, you've got to throw offers out on real estate. You've got to knock on the door. You've got to actually get into a transaction and have those awkward conversations with like your lenders and say, if I was hypothetically going to buy my neighbor's house next door, what would I need to qualify? And most people go, oh, I don't have the 20% down, so there's no way I could ever be a real estate investor. The 20% down, smoke and mirrors. That doesn't really exist. If you really understand how this all works with cash flow, if you're buying it for the right price and you're buying the right property that works for you and the numbers work, you'll find the 20% or whatever it is for down payment. It doesn't have to just be what everybody thinks. A banking institution has to be my lender. I have to have 20% down. I have to have this. And so they just march on as if this is the gospel truth forever. And it's not true. So start with education, but don't stop there. Don't get stuck there. You got to try stuff.
Oh yeah, that's a great step. That's a great first step. And speaking of banks, a thing that I've learned myself as well, is that's what I was thinking as well. 20% down, and that's how you do it. And apparently, no, you can just if it's an investment property, even the bank looks at it differently.
Yeah.
Because they do look at the cash flow. So if the property can pay it off, like pay them back the mortgage with all the interest, they're fine with it.
Yeah. And if you do the transaction right, it could potentially be a non-recourse loan, meaning it's not affecting your personal credit. It would be the note on the property itself. Now, are they going to check your personal credit? Yes, because that personal credit shows that you know how to behave and you know how to pay your bills, and it gives you credibility. So I'm not saying that personal credit isn't important. It is. It's not the end all be all though. So you can do different things. But again, this is part of the education aspect. Where do you start? If people are really starting, you can order books. You can go to different podcasts, your podcast, my podcast, My Life as a Landlord. that you can go to Facebook groups. There's tons of Facebook groups, meetups in your local area. That's another thing, is throw it out there on Facebook and say, I'm interested in becoming a real estate investor in Ottawa. Where's the nearest meetup? And I guarantee you, people are going to jump in saying, hey, we're having a meetup here, here, here. Go in person, go meet these people.
That's awesome. Thanks for...
Got to have those awkward conversations.
Yeah. Speaking of the Facebook group, do you guys have one?
We are building our community. That's one of the things that I am struggling with. So do I have one? Yes. Is it active? Not as active as I'd like it to be. I'm building my team. That's okay. But for me, it's more important to get the library of episodes in the podcast that doesn't expire. So everything in my podcast library is immediately applicable, because we're talking about templates and animals and tenant screening and, how to do all the,
So it's like a lot of fundamentals.
All the fundamentals. And so I'm trying to build up the library so that it's not, it doesn't expire. And so we can do more discussion on community. And the community is not silent. Let me just be clear. The community is not silent. They are very loud, especially when I get something wrong, which is fine. It's like I get stuff wrong all the time. Just because I'm a quote unquote success, Alex, that doesn't mean I'm perfect.
Well, yeah, I guess nobody is.
No.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to join your community, how can they do that?
Well, listening to the podcast is the easiest one. MyLifeAsALandlord.com is the website. And if they've got a story to tell, they can apply to be a guest on the show. I get approached every day for people that want to be on the show for different reasons, for real estate investors. And yeah, the Facebook group is growing. There's always questions going on there. And everything is My Life as a Landlord, even YouTube, My Life as a Landlord. Very quickly, I am coming out with location-specific episodes. So let's say you're in Ottawa, but you want to buy real estate in BC or California or wherever it might be. I'm starting to do podcast episodes that are nothing but those locations. And so I can't do all of North America at once. That will break me, but I'm going to start doing tranches. And so very soon, there's going to be tranches of podcasts that come live pretty much in one day. And we're going to do the first 10 coming up in April 2025. And so people, again, it's breaking out of this notion that wherever they are living, the housing rules are not the same everywhere. And so the whole idea here is that we talk about the tenancy laws. We talk about what do you do with abandoned items in that area, because those are also very confusing things. If a tenant leaves and they abandon their car, they abandon their unit, what do you do with their items? Every place is a little bit different on what you're supposed to
talk about that.
Yeah, very interesting. And then the last one is, if you need help in that area, where do you even start? And so this is sort of hey, if you need help looking at either rentals in your local area or you're thinking of buying in one of these other areas, it's a place to start. And it's going to take me probably all of 2025 and into 26 to get all of North America, all 50 states, Canadian provinces and territories and US territories. It's going to take me a while to get them all. But the whole idea, again, is to increase that library so it's maximum value.
Wow. Well, I'll personally be looking to watch all of those.
They're going to be interesting, and there's the same framework, right? It's going to be really interesting. Yeah.
Well, especially since, like, as you said, like, you like to cover fundamentals, and that's what we live in as well. In the world of marketing sales, or I would mostly talk about the marketing side. Because, like, in case, for example, like with AI, right? Those are like new things, and we would use them, different tricks within AI, but we would still use the fundamentals, because with the when we talk about marketing, it's mostly psychology. And at the end of the day, people are people, and psychology doesn't really change that much. I mean, maybe in 1,000 years, yes, it does. But fundamentally, doesn't necessarily change that much. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this episode. Well, Jennifer, as I always like to say, when we finish our episodes, I believe the time is the most valuable asset, and I appreciate you sharing it with me and with the audience. And thanks a lot for sharing all of these golden nuggets, so that you guys, if you're If you don't necessarily want to listen to the whole episode again, you could do the trick with ChatGPT and get all the golden nuggets. But definitely check out her podcast and get herself educated.
I love it. Thanks for having me. This was great.